G'day, it's Fiona Brown and welcome to another video in my instructional series set. Today we are going to create a flat icon using Adobe Illustrator and using an image that we get from flaticon.com and doing an image trace. First of all, let's go up to File, New and create a new document which is 500 pixels by 500 pixels. I'm going to give mine a name. I'm going to call it Cafe Icon, simply because I know that I'm going to be choosing an image of coffee beans. Click OK and there's our empty document. The first thing I want to do is to create a rounded rectangle background, and I'm going to click on the rectangle tool and I want you to select rounded rectangle. Mine, as you can see, was already selected. Now I'm going to click the tool rather than drag out and draw, and I'm going to create the 500 pixels by 500 pixels. I'm going to fill the whole shape except for this corner radius, which I'm going to change to 45. Then I'm going to go OK. Here is my rectangle, which is going to snap into place quite nicely for me. With my square selected, I am going to change its fill and stroke. Double clicking on the fill, I want the fill to be some sort of bright blue. That will be fine. I'll switch on the stroke to bring it to the front and select none, and now there is no stroke. I'm going to come across to my layers panel and you'll see my background. I'm going to call that blue background. I'm going to lock that layer so I can't accidentally modify it, and then I'm going to create a new layer on which to put my coffee icon. Holding down Alt-Tab numerous times, I'm going to go to flaticon.com, where I have a subscription allowing me to search for free vector icons. I'm going to type in coffee bean, or I could have typed in cafe, coffee shop. I'm pretty sure they all would have given me some form of coffee bean. Okay, here's the one that I'm looking for, so I'm going to select that one. Now I have the option here of saving as a number of different file types. I'm going to save as raster today for your project because I want you to be able to develop the skills of generating your own image trace. So let's select PNG. I want the icon to be black and I'm going to click 512. Okay, I'll leave you to save that to wherever you need. I already have that file saved, so I'm going to go into File, Place, into Icons, select Coffee Beans, Place. Okay, there we have our coffee beans. Now this has been brought in as a raster image, so as I zoom in, you'll see that it does lose quality. Zoom back out. Okay, I'm going to rename this layer Coffee Beans. Then I'm going to create a copy of this layer, just in case I mess up the one that I'm working with. Select my coffee beans, go up to Object, down to Image Trace, and Make. Let's go up to our image trace panel because I want to make some modifications to the settings before I expand. I'm going to be doing a black and white. I'm going to be creating filled regions. I'm not going to be applying strokes. And I want to ignore white. I don't want it to treat white as an object that needs to be traced, only black as an object that needs to be traced. It's created 4 paths with 46 anchor points, probably more anchor points than I'd use if I was creating it myself. I can change that by modifying aspects of the paths. I'm not particularly worried, that's not a lot of paths to deal with. Okay, now I'm going to expand. You'll see that what we have here is a set of shapes that are vectors that have been created around the outside of our raster image. If I zoom in on these, you can see that they remain nice and sharp. Okay, zooming back out, I want to have my coffee beans in white, so I'm going to bring the fill towards the front, double click, FF gives me the colour white, and there's my white coffee beans. They're probably a bit larger than I want at the moment. So at the same time, I will also scale down, holding the shift key to constrain, and then move it back towards the centre. Okay, last thing is to create a shadow. At this point, I am going to rename my layer Coffee Beans White. Then I am going to create a copy of it so that I can create my shadow. I'm going to lock the original Coffee Beans White layer so I don't accidentally select it. Come up to the other Coffee Beans copy and call this shadow, because that's where I'll be creating the shadow. I'm going to drag the shadow down below the coffee beans so we can see it as it works. Okay, selecting my coffee beans. They're already grouped together, these objects, so no need to draw a marquee and group, but I will be changing the colour. I'm going to come across to the fill, and I'm going to put in 000000 and changing that to black. I'll just for the moment turn off or toggle off the view of my coffee beans so I can see that black was indeed applied. And now I'm going to transform this so that it creates the shadow. With your coffee beans shadow selected, we're going to go up to Effect, down to Distort and Transform, and select Transform. And we're going to move copies of this by 0.5 pixels by 0.5 pixels. And I'm going to estimate that we made about 400 copies, and as I preview that, you can see that it does extend past the edge of the icon, so that I do have plenty. In fact, I could probably try a few less copies and that would still be okay. So clicking OK. Now I have the basis for my shadow. If you see me toggle back on the original coffee beans, you can see where they'll be in place. One of the problems that I have is that the coffee bean shadow extends past the edge of the icon. So I'm going to create a clipping mask on this layer and apply it so that it constrains the edge of the shadow within that rounded rectangle. I'm going to click the rounded rectangle tool. I don't want this to have a fill or stroke, so I've already got no stroke. My fill is black. I'm going to click on None, so my rounded rectangle will have no fill and no stroke. I'm going to click and see that I still have 500 pixels, and 45 as the settings for a rounded rectangle, and then I'm going to drag that up until it snaps into place. Because I created this rounded rectangle after I created the shadow, it is sitting in front of it, so I'll be able to marquee, have all of that selected, right click and go Make Clipping Mask, and you'll see that my shadow is constrained really neatly in the corner there. The last thing I need to do is modify the opacity of this shadow. For the moment I'm going to turn on the coffee beans again so I can see what the final picture will look like as I modify the appearance. I'm going to change the opacity. Now I could just take the opacity up and down, but as you can see this just leaves me with a grey shadow of varying intensities. So first what I'm going to do is change the blending mode to multiply, and as you'll see when I move the opacity down, instead of just a grey shadow I end up with a range of dark blue shadows, which I find much more suitable. I'm going to set that to about 25%. And there you have it, a simple coffee bean flat icon. This has been Fiona Brown, and I hope that you enjoyed this video in my instructional series, and watch out for more.